Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to create email accounts using Cpanel. So Cpanel is basically a control panel which gives you control and management over your web hosting account, and typically the access details for your Cpanel is provided to you by your web designer, your web developer or your hosting provider. So in order to demo this, I'm going to be using a website I'm working on. It's called Logo Design. It's a logo design website basically. It's not completed, but in this example I want to try and create an email account for this particular domain. It's called londonlogodesigners.co.uk. So I want an email address, info@londonlogodesigners.co.uk, and you'd simply replace this URL or the domain with your own domain. So in order to get access to Cpanel, I need to type in the domain name and you'll typically see your website. If it's password protected, then you'll need to enter passwords in to see it. But in this example, I've got the domain here in my Firefox web browser in the address bar, and after this I need to type in Cpanel. And I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to ask me for a username and password. Now the username and password is provided to you by your hosting provider or your web developer, and when you enter in the username and password you'll be presented with this Cpanel login. Now the type of hosting that you set up will depend if you've got Cpanel or a different type of management system for your hosting, and there's various options in here. There's quite a lot. I'm going to be going through quite a lot of these things here, but in this example today I just want to go through the email services, setting up the email services. So the first thing we need to do is just do a couple of quick checks. And when you set up this control panel for your hosting, or your hosting provider does this for you, or your developer, you need to make a couple of quick checks in here to make sure the email services are set up correctly before you actually go and create the email. So the first thing you need to do is check the MX record entry, and when you click on here, we'll just select this domain. We need to make sure that local mail exchange is selected. If one of these others is selected, then your emails are not going to work properly from this particular domain. There might be some other way you've configured your emails, but if you're going to do this as just a bog standard email from Cpanel, you need to make sure local mail exchange is selected here. That's quite important. So I'm going to click on the home and go back, and then I'm going to click on email authentication, and in here I can see that these two options have not been selected, and it's important that you enable these before you create the email account. I'm going to go back. You can see now it's enabled. I'm going to enable this one as well. And basically these two options just help to prevent spam messages, incoming spam messages, or you getting identified as a spam email. And this one helps to prevent outgoing spam. So it's just to verify that when someone sends an email, it's actually come from this domain. There's some more technical information provided on the Cpanel website, but in general you should have both of these options enabled. I'm going to click back on home again, and I'm going to go to default address. And what you want to do here is make sure that the domain name, it says discard with errors to sender. So currently setting fail, no such user here. So basically what this is saying is, when an email gets sent to you, if it's not the correct email address, so if it's not info@londonlogodesigners.co.uk, this actual service here will send a message back to whoever sent you the email saying that that email address doesn't exist. There's other options here that you can set, but what's important for me is that you probably set it to this option here. The reason why is you just don't want like a catch-all email account, because you just end up getting tons of spam. So it's quite important to set it to this particular option here. Again, you may want to consult with your hosting provider or your developer, but typically this is the right setting. This is the one that I use. I'm going to click back on the home, and that's just the basic checks. You can also set up Spam Assassin. This is to help prevent spam hitting your inbox. And there's some other options here like forwarding and autoresponders. We'll have a look at those a little bit later, but for now we're going to click on the email accounts here. Now, if you've got more than one domain registered on this particular account, sometimes you may have londonlogodesigners.co.uk and .com. You need to select from this drop down menu. I've got a subdomain running here for a mobile version of this website I'm going to be building, but in this case I just want the email to be info@londonlogodesigners.co.uk. So you need to keep a note of the information you type in here, because you're going to need that later. So I'm going to type in info here, and the email address will be info@londonlogodesigners.co.uk. I'm just making a few little notes as I go along, and then you want to enter a password. Now you can either use the password generator, and it's going to type in a quite complex password, and this is going to be quite difficult for you to remember. So clearly you want a password that's very secure, but at the same time you're going to want something that you can remember in case you want to check these emails when you're not in front of your computer. You may want to access it from, I don't know, a hotel where you're staying in a hotel, or from another, basically a different machine. You're going to need to know the email address, which is quite easy to remember, but the password, you're going to need to know that as well. So I'm just going to generate a random password, one that I can remember, and I'm going to paste it into here. Now the mailbox quota, really, this I typically set it to around 250 megabytes, and then I check this on a daily basis, and I manage the emails. There's various ways of doing that. I'm going to show you later in another tutorial how to add this particular email account to Mozilla Thunderbird or Outlook or other mail clients, where you can use those mail clients to manage the emails themselves. But in this example, we're really just creating the email itself. So you can leave this as default 250. You can increase it more if you want. It's entirely your choice, but I normally leave it around 250 megabytes. That's more than enough for the purpose of what I'm going to be using it for. I'm going to click on create email account now, and account created, info@londonlogodesigners.co.uk. I can just close this little message, and here I've got the one email account running now. So I can email to this account now, and it's not going to be a problem, and I can send and receive from it. Clients can email to me to this particular email account now. So there's a few other things that we can do in here. We can change the password, we can change the quota, we can delete the email, and we can click on this more. And when we click on this more, we can either configure the email client, or we can access it via webmail. So just as a quick example, if I wanted to view emails in this email account, I can go to londonlogodesigners.co.uk/webmail, and when I go to that particular URL, it's going to ask me for the username, which is the email address itself, and it's going to ask me for the password. Now, depending on the type of hosting provider you use, in this example, I've got 3 different types of ways of checking the email. I don't think this, typically I use Roundcube to check all of my emails. When I'm using the webmail service, it's the most easiest for me to use, and I prefer to use Roundcube. So you can choose any 3 of these. They all, whenever an email gets sent, they're going to get stored in all of these 3 services. You can think of these as 3 different ways of seeing the email account. I'll click on Roundcube just as a quick example. Let that load up. And it's a bit like Gmail or Hotmail or any other Yahoo type email account. It's got an inbox, it's got draft and sent and junk and trash, and emails will come into your inbox, and you can delete them. They'll go into the trash bin, and you can empty the trash bin, and down here it's going to show you how much of that 250 megabytes is being used at present. Typically I don't store any of my emails in the Roundcube. They come into Roundcube or into the email address itself, but then I download them to Thunderbird, Mozilla Thunderbird email client, and then the emails get removed from this inbox, so that I've always got very little space being used. They get downloaded to my computer, and then I can check them there. It's much easier than logging into webmail. So in a later tutorial, I'll show you how to create, set up this particular email account on Thunderbird. This will be quite easy. I'm just going to click the back arrow because I want to show you one more thing. When you log in via webmail, there's a few other options here. You can set up autoresponders. So if you've gone on holiday, you can create an autoresponder quite easily. You just click add autoresponder, and you can set the email from where the email is going to be sent back from. So this will typically be the same email address. You can set the from name, the subject, and in the body you can say I'm away on holiday, I'll be back in 2 weeks time, and give them the date, and maybe give them some other alternative contact details. And this will just send back an email. So if anyone that sends you an email, it will send this basic email back to them telling them that you're on holiday and you're going to be back in 2 weeks or whatever it might be. Just going to click back here again. Now this one's quite important. We're going to need this later in the next tutorial that I'll do. Actually, let's just look at forwarding. So in forwarding, what you can do here is you can set a forwarder. What will happen is when the emails hit the info@londonlogodesigners.co.uk, I can tell it to keep it'll keep the email in this inbox, but it will also forward it to another email address. So I could forward it to my Hotmail, my Yahoo, my Google Mail, whatever it might be. For whatever reason, I can send it there as well. But bear in mind, you're going to have two copies. You're going to have one in the inbox here, and you're going to forward another one to here. So just make sure you understand that you're going to have two copies of the email in two different locations. So you need to do some management of it. Typically, I don't use this option. I rarely ever use this. I don't use it basically, but you may need to. So the last thing I want to quickly show you is mail configuration, and in here it's quite important. You've got loads of settings, and typically when you set up your email account on something like Outlook or Mozilla Thunderbird or any other type of email client, this is ones that run from your desktop computer, you would want to use the SSL encryption connection. So this one here is the one that you want to use when you're setting up your Thunderbird or your Mozilla or your Outlook. And here you can see some stuff for Apple Mac. These are some just basic settings, quick settings that you can use. Typically I configure my email clients manually myself. I don't normally use these quick settings here. I like to configure it myself and learn how to do that. So I'll be showing you how to do that in the next tutorial. So in this tutorial we basically went through this control panel here, Cpanel, and we clicked on the email. We checked all the other settings first to make sure they're correct before we created the email account. So do make sure you do those other settings first, and then when you create the email account you're going to have less problems, which is quite important. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and keep an eye out for more DCP web tutorials.